Just a couple of days ago, I heard a beautiful performance of this F sharp major prelude by Italian pianist Gianluca Luisi on WQXR. He plays it in the spirit of a pastoral, mellow, smooth, peaceful, like the E major prelude that we heard 2 sessions ago. The 12/16 time signature of the F sharp major prelude is an indication for a pastoral. There's also the dotted rhythm that we so often find in pastorals. For example, in the aria from the Messiah, "He shall feed his flock," it's this opening. So this change of long and short rhythms. But I feel that the dotted rhythm in this piece is different. The way Bach puts it, the rhythm creates a constant series of syncopations. Those are stresses on the wrong beat, a little bit like a limp, like landing on the wrong foot. So I'll play the right hand alone, which has these leaps. If it weren't for the stabilizing bass that moves along sitting on the downbeat, steadfast as a rock, you wouldn't know what to make of that right hand rhythm. I'll play the hands together from the second measure. That rhythmic structure gives me the feeling that this is a piece that has spring in its step, and that's how I like to play it. Recently, someone put a video of frolicking baby goats on Facebook. Watching the boisterous, funny leaps and runs of the little animals spontaneously brought this piece to my mind. The fascinating thing is, what sounds boisterous and somewhat random turns out to be deliberate and well organized when you take a closer look. Each of the 6 phrases, they're marked in the score, begins with a motif that is made up of a broken triad. That's the blue line. The following middle section of each phrase is made up of leaps and bounds. It can be very short, as in phrases 3 and 4, or quite long, as in the other ones. It always modulates, that is, it leads to a different key, and the bass solidifies that key with a cadence at the end of the phrase that's marked purple. So in the first phrase, that leads us from F sharp major, where we started, to C sharp major. There's a recurring final motif in a lot of the phrases in the right hand too, and that's marked pink in the score. At the end of the first phrase, we've already talked about the way the right hand and the left hand relate to each other rhythmically. The left hand faithfully following the downbeat, grounding the right hand that goes all over the place. We're in for a surprise when we take a closer look at the right hand and discover that it too follows a line just like the bass. You find it when you connect the second note of the right hand leaps. It's marked yellow in the score, and this is what it sounds like. of course, when you hear the complete melody, it's obscured by the leaps. I'm going to play it once hands together and outline the consecutive falling line in the left hand. Now, when we play the right hand and the left hand together, we notice that there's actually a line in both hands. Those two lines follow each other at the interval of a sixth. And when I use the original rhythm, it creates this interesting little suspension. In the course of the piece, the bass, even though it stays on the downbeat, can't quite resist the influence of the whimsical right hand. It imitates the opening motif right from the beginning. So right hand. As the piece progresses, the steady lines in the middle of the phrases get shorter in the left hand and change direction more often. Also, the intervals, the leaps, get larger. We notice that, for example, when we compare the left hand in phrase 2 and in phrase 5. So in phrase 2 we have... Oh, I'm sorry, played the wrong one. I'll start again in measure 7. In measure 5, in phrase 5, we have this. And then follows the final cadence. At the beginning of the very last phrase, it's even the bass that gives the initial impulse. And then the right hand comes in. This is actually a quote from the beginning of the piece. The scope of that last phrase extends across what would have been just about the entire keyboard in Bach's time, from the low C sharp to the high B, underscoring the exuberance and the sheer joy of being alive that speaks from this prelude. So here's the last phrase. And there's a final surprise when you look at the form. The seeming randomness and irregularity of the musical ideas in this prelude are cast into a symmetrical form, with the short phrases 3 and 4 in the middle. Harmonically, they're both in minor keys, and then phrase 2 corresponds to phrase 5, and phrase 1 corresponds to phrase 6. I just cannot get these frolicking baby goats out of my head. Had we met at Ethical, I would have shared that video with you. So in this last video I made of the piece, I combined the beginning of each phrase with a photo of another little goat. It's a little silly, but I hope it's good enough for a smile, which we can all use at this time.